Hi, everyone. This is Cloud Conversations, the Microsoft 365 podcast stroke YouTube show that you didn't know that you need, but you definitely do. And just when you think that you've got all the answers, we come right along and change all the questions. I'm Peter Rising, Microsoft MVP, and I'm here today with my good friend, my hairy companion, Mr. Rue Campbell. How are you today, Rue?
I'm good, Pete. I'm good, Pete. Feeling very hairy today, so just kind of, but yeah, all good here. And obviously today, on episode 8, we are joined by Jan Bakker. Uh, Jan is an independent cloud consultant and also a Microsoft MVP, based in the Netherlands, which I think makes it our third guest from the Netherlands. Something going on in the Netherlands. You guys are just killing it with all the Intune stuff. Jan has been in the IT world for over a decade, and specializes specifically in Microsoft 365 areas such as security, Azure AD, and the Power Platform. He blogs at janbakker.tech, and is also active, like all our guests, on Twitter and LinkedIn, where you can find him just by searching for Jan Bakker. So, thanks for joining us, Jan.
Thanks, guys. And well, let's start off with a compliment to you because I am a fan of this podcast. I am from the first hour, and it's
Thank
just
you.
an honor to be on here with you. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, great. No, glad you like it. I mean, we've kind of said the same thing with all the guests we've had on, insofar as we're just really winging it. We'll see how it goes. It's going to have its imperfections and things, but the main theme of the show, really, and I think Peter hit on it when he did his introduction a few episodes ago, was just that if you're in our little neck of the woods, if you're into cloud computing, specifically the Microsoft stuff, we want to talk to folks, and we kind of want to talk to everyone, because there's a lot of experience out there, and it's good to pick folks' brains on it. So I guess just to kind of kick us off then, Jan, can you just kind of give yourself, I've introduced you obviously, but can you just tell folks a little bit more about yourself, and what you kind of like sharing with the community?
Yeah. Well, as you briefly introduced me, I am Jan Bakker. I'm 32 years old, and I live in the Netherlands. And I'm an independent cloud consultant focused on the Microsoft 365 stack, with a little more focus to identity, security, and compliance. But I am also working with Endpoint Manager, so Intune stuff, the modern workplace as a whole. And I'm indeed a Microsoft MVP, which I'm really proud of and honored. And I like sharing with the community, and I mostly do that by writing on my website. But lately, I'm also trying to do a little bit more speaking.
How are you finding the speaking? Because it's something I've started to kind of dip my toes in as well, and it's obviously very different doing it online than in person. But how are you finding that?
Yeah, it's tough. I rather stay on stage, like a real life in-person event. But on the other hand, to start with speaking, maybe online is a little better because you can somehow hide behind your camera and behind your screen. So it's less frightening to just go out there and start speaking. So it's different. It's a little bit hard to get used to, but it helped me to get on stage and get used to speaking in public.
Awesome, good stuff. Because I think some conferences are starting to open up and go in person. I think in the UK, anyways, at South Coast Summit, Pete can keep me right here. He's the resident public speaker. So it'll be exciting, I guess, when we can finally actually start seeing folks in person, because it's just going to be so much better, building relationships in person. So I guess just before I start picking your brains on all the technical stuff, because you've done a lot of cool stuff with the Power Platform and things that I want to talk to you about. But one of the things we mentioned when we opened the show was that you're an independent consultant. And that's something that is quite certainly interesting to me, insofar as, working on your own, being self-employed and independent. That just seems quite a risk, insofar as you don't have an established company behind you. How did you decide to make that move, and how are you finding it?
I agree. It's a risk. I'm honest. It's also kind of scary. I just started as an independent consultant this year, so I'm fresh. But it's something that I always wanted to do, and And then I thought, okay, I was working from home for almost a year, and I said to myself, if I am not going to do it right now, I'm probably not going to do it ever again. So I said, why not try it? Because if you don't try it, you cannot experience whether it's something that you're good at or something that you like. So far, so good. But yeah, it's a bit risky. But I think if you have confidence in yourself and you keep current, also with the with all the knowledge, so yeah, then it's a little less risky. But yeah, it's as I said, so far so good. But I have confidence for the future, because there is a lot of work in this area. And I'm not alone. I have the whole community around me. So basically, that is my employee, which I can fall back to, where I can ask questions. Because I can also get stuck in things. But then, luckily, there's the whole community that can help me.
So true. I love that answer. I applaud your tenacity, Jan. It's so impressive to see what you're doing, and I absolutely think you're right in saying that if not now, then when? You strike while the iron's hot. Do it when you feel like it's the best opportunity, and absolutely superb. I personally don't know if I could ever take that leap. It's not something I think that I could do. I know a few independent consultants out there. Chirag Patel in the UK, for example, he's been doing it for quite some time, and he says it's excellent. He would never look back. So horses for courses, but my hat's off to you. I think it's wonderful. And as you say, you got that community to fall back on. And what a wonderful community it is. It's the best there is, and so many great people out there who are generous with their time, and that's how the three of us really get to know each other. Well, Rue and I through work primarily, but we're now both part of the community. But we meet so many people that we never would have come across because of this common interest and career choice that we've made of M365.
True, because back then you have to go to all these dusty books and get into the knowledge, and but now there's so much that you can learn by just watching videos on YouTube, for example, or reading blog posts, of just having one-on-one chats with other colleagues all around the world, and just like we are doing some brain picking. So how do you look at things? How do you do that? And you can learn from each other. So there's so much knowledge just for free, basically. So that makes it easy.
I think that's how you and I first got in touch, actually, Jan, isn't it? I think you commented on one of my blogs. I can't quite remember which one it was now, but I think you found it useful, and then asked me to expand on it. Was it one of the practical 365 ones?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was about information protection. And I was not that experienced. Yeah, sensitivity, indeed. So I was not that experienced in that area a lot. And then I read your blog post about it, and it makes me so much clearer to understand how it's building up and how you can use it. So I believe that's how we start chatting. Indeed.
Awesome.
That's cool. I love it. It's Azure Information Protection, bringing people together. There's a
that's a great slogan.
That's a great slogan. Yeah, no, but it's so true. I mean, I've commented on this before, but I prior to the beginning of last year, when I really went all in on 365, I'd kind of played the jack of all trades, and I even did some elements that were completely away from Microsoft 365 ERP systems and things like that, like Dynamics. But it's kind of incredible that the amount of stuff, like you said, that is just out there for free, and how if you just put the time into it, you can go from being absolutely zero information to really knowing an absolute ton of stuff, just if you put the time in, because it's all out there. It's just a case of finding it. And the other thing that always amazes me is the Microsoft documentation. It's better than it's ever been, in my opinion, thanks to the kind of way it's done through GitHub, constant feedback and improvements. But it's just how much time folks will then take out of their normal day lives and then put it into translating it and making it easier to understand. Because the Microsoft documentation, it's scattered about and it's in a million different places. It's very formal. And then folk will just blog and translate that into real world scenarios. Kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. And I don't know how many, outside of technology, I don't know how many industries there are do that. I mean, does that happen in law? Does that happen in accounting? Maybe it does. I don't know. But it seems to just be kind of something special that we've got here.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the kind of praising of the community out the way. Out the way.
Yeah, no, I
guess,
really loved that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and just thinking a wee bit more about the how you mentioned making that jump to the independent consultant.
Mhm.
How did you was it you mentioned it was something you'd always done, and then you've said, well, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. Is that just a case of, the world is going all in on cloud computing and it's a good opportunity to get involved in it? Or was there something else what was the actual straw that broke the camel's back and you said, right, I'm doing it right now?
Yeah, well, it was mainly because of COVID, but also because of a lot of people were telling me, "You're independent, right? You're an independent consultant." I said, "No, I'm not." And more people start saying it. So, do I look like one? Why are you still saying that? And then I start realizing maybe this is something that I really want, to get the freedom to pick my own customers and the work that I actually like, and also making a sidestep to maybe training, for example. And if you want to become a trainer and you're employed, you got to go to this company that only does training, for example. And there are not that many companies that you can both do consultancy and training in both one employer. So that got me thinking, if I want to go that way, and I'm not quite sure if I'm going that direction, but I'm thinking about it, then I have to be possible to make my own decisions what way to go. And if 1 year I want to be doing consultancy, and the next year, because the market asks for it, I want to do training, then I'm free to go because I can decide on my own. And so it was always something that I wanted, but COVID did it eventually, because I said to myself, well, I'm working from home now for almost a year. I think I can do this on my own now. It was like an internship for the bigger work.
Right, that's cool. And I get, when you think about the slant between maybe the more technical involvement in running projects and then training folks up on that, it's like, do you find yourself enjoying teaching folks and training and all that kind of stuff? Is that something that you like doing?
Yeah, I always like doing training, and whether it's like official training courses or just a one-on-one video call and walk you through the Azure portal explaining stuff. If the other person enjoys it and appreciates it, it gives me pleasure, and it's really satisfying to bring over your knowledge, because you can write it down, but then the other person needs to read it that way, like you said it, and by talking to the other person, you really got the understanding that they got it. So bringing it in person is so much better, and you get instant response, like, okay, I did not know that. Thank you for teaching me that, and that's great.
Yeah.
And how are you finding your customers? And because you're your own boss, you are a company of one at the moment. So you are the consultant, the architect, the expert, shall we say? But you're also the salesperson. You're out there generating your own leads and responsible for your taxes and your accounts. And how are you finding that aspect of it, wearing all of those different hats so far? Is that a challenge?
Well, you can delegate some of the boring stuff, like financial stuff. So I do that. And in case of new opportunities, right now at the moment there are a lot of opportunities. So customers are finding me instead of I have to finding these customers. But it can be different in 2 years, I understand. And well, if way in the future it's tougher to get that clients, well, maybe I regret it after that, but now there's so much opportunities, and I have to say no every day at this moment. So I can't get any more work in this week, because I also want to spend time with my family.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of opportunities right now, especially in the Microsoft Cloud scope.
And that's not surprising, and that's a lovely position to be in. And how are these customers finding you? Is it through social media, through LinkedIn, Twitter, particularly?
Mostly LinkedIn and social media. Yeah, and they email me, said, "Hey, I read your blog post. Can you help me with that? Can you help me with this?" So It's really easy. It's a luxury position I'm in right now, and I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, no, it sounds like a great position you're in insofar as, being able to, where you're in a position where, what would you say, the your supply is currently in favor of your demand insofar as you're having to say no every day. That's a good place to be. And I don't, you say that you're expressing that you feel fortunate and things like that, but I think it's always important that there's not a whole bunch of luck involved here. You've put the work in and you've established yourself as someone that's there and available, and the timing is good, but it's all on you, and it's all thanks to the work you've put in.
Completely.
Yep.
And a bit of luck, also.
Fair enough. See, this is I have this discussion with folk all the time. It feels like, but I don't know how much luck plays into it. It's there was that quote. I can't remember. It was some baseball player or something like that said, "It's funny how the harder I work, the luckier I get." You know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at it. So. Yeah.
Well, luck or destiny, because if you think about how I end up in IT, then you guys have that as well. If there's one moment in time that you think back and you say, okay, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am at today. And I have the exact same thing, because I'm not proud at it, but I dropped out of high school because I didn't know what to do. I finished my first degree on high school, but then I didn't know what to do, and I thought by myself, okay, I'm just gonna stay in high school and do another higher degree, but then I got so demotivated, and one day this teacher said, "Jan, what are you doing here in this class? You're a mess." I looked to myself. I said, "You're right. I have to go." And I stepped up and I left high school and I started working. But in that small period at school, I met my girlfriend, which is now my wife. And she had a brother who was in IT. And we were chatting about it. And I said, okay, what is this IT like? Is it good? Is it making good money? Do you have a lot of schoolwork to do after school? And he said, no, it's cool. You can work with computers, and it's the future, Jan. You should try it. We said, oh, well, okay, let's try it. And that's how I ended up in IT, which is also a love story, because if I didn't, there were a couple of months that I was in school, and then I met my girlfriend. Because if I went on doing something different, then I wouldn't be here today, I guess. So
what an amazing story. I love that so much. And the amount of times we have conversations with our guests, and it's very similar stories. It's quite often unintended, accidental, chance meetings, and maybe it is fate and destiny. Who knows in the grand scheme of things. But myself, I mean, I met my wife at work. If I wasn't working at a particular company at a particular time, we would never have met. So yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Love it.
Yeah,
more power to you.
Yeah, it's so cool. Well, first of all, that's an amazing story, but it is so cool how you can look back and there's just one tiny little decision you make, and then boom, it's butterfly effect or whatever it's called.
Yeah, cause and effect. Butterfly effect. Yeah, love it.
Cool. So I guess if shift gears a little bit, and I kind of want to talk about some of the stuff that you blog about and your specific areas of kind of technical interest. And one of the cool things that you feature in your blog is this really kind of extensive series on the Microsoft Secure Score. Where did the idea come for you to start turning that into a series? And then I guess also, how do you recommend folks start implementing that Secure Score? Because there's a lot to address there, and where's the best place to start?
I'm not sure how I started thinking about it as a series, but I think the series sort of evolved when I started writing. I started my website in early 2019, and to be honest, I needed some stuff to put out there. It hadn't be a website with just one article. I needed some articles to put on there. So I was seeing the Secure Score, and I didn't know that then quite well, and I found it very undervalued. So I thought, okay, people should know about this, because just writing about it is helpful, but just taking these recommendations that Microsoft puts there for you is already really easy. Because I have a lot of customers that ask, okay, I should do something with security and compliance and data protection, but where do I start? Where's the low-hanging fruit? And I think the Secure Score series is basically the low-hanging fruit, what you can start with. So enabling MFA, enabling self-service password reset, start using conditional access, all those kind of things. So that's how it started, and it's actually my advice: if you don't know where to start with working on your secure score, and not because it's just a game to get a high score, but to get you started in security and making your tenant more secure.
Nice one, awesome. And I guess, when there's so much you can do now to secure Microsoft 365, even compared to just a few years ago. And there's the stuff that's obvious, like MFA and conditional access, but it's so hard to keep up with, even within those, the improvements and things that are coming. I guess, what are the main things? So if someone's looking for quick wins, what should they go away and do in 365?
Well, the quick wins are obviously in identity security, because the key of all your data is in identities. So at the end, if you don't protect your identities as well, you can protect your data, you can protect your applications, your devices, but at the end, identity is the new perimeter, as we always say. So you should start with your identity. If you haven't started with all the rest, because that's basically where you should start, and it's already hard enough to start with identity protection, because the devil is in the details with identity protection. You say, okay, I can put on Azure MFA, but there's so much that you have to think about, and all these little details that makes you can make it or break it also for your end users by a crappy implementation of Azure MFA, and all your users start like, okay, what is this? Why do I need to prompt MFA 4 times a day? What is this? So you need to be really careful with that. So to answer your question, start with identity. It's really important to do it right.
Absolutely. And for a time now, quite a while now, Microsoft have been pushing out new Microsoft 365 tenants with the security defaults in place, which is a good starting point. To a point, I think. They're also a little bit of a sledgehammer approach, because it's all or nothing, and I generally try and get those off as quickly as possible if my customer has premium P1 and can do conditional access. So what do you think of the security defaults? Good thing, bad thing, or in between?
Well, it depends, as a good consultant should say. But you need some considerations, because it's true, it's all or nothing, which is a good thing in one point, because you cannot make mistakes in configuration. Because if you have to configure conditional access, there can be quite some gaps and that you don't know. And when you put on security defaults, it's just locking those front door, locking those back door, and nobody can get in with legacy authentication. Everybody needs to do MFA where necessary. Yet the bad thing is that you can have only one, you can only use Microsoft Authenticator, and you cannot make exclusions. And so for most companies, I would say 9 out of 10, that's just not working. They need exclusions for service accounts, for all kinds of legacy stuff. So I would say security defaults, it's fine if you don't have anything else in position, like conditional access or some measurements. But start with conditional access, but because it's more granular, and it gives you so much more that you can work with. It makes it a little bit harder, but security defaults, in my opinion, is just for smaller companies who don't care about security, and say, okay, if I put this on, will my identity be secure? And you can say, yes, your identity will be secure, and that's it. But for the customers that I work with, security default is not an option. But it's good that Microsoft puts it there, because it's really easy. It's just one switch, bam, and you're secure.
Yeah, well, I think it's the idea that, maybe several years ago, by default, Office 365 was completely open and really not that secure at the identity perimeter anyway. Whereas now they've changed that and says, well, now we're definitely secure because we're using these baselines, but there's a little bit less intricacy and finesse around it, and that's when you need to start removing them. Because conditional access and multi-factor authentication, MFA prompt fatigue is a real thing insofar as if you're asking your users to MFA 5, 6, 7 times a day, they just phase out and they'll just, yes, approve, or they'll just hate the IT department. So you have to be, I do think that, and I've blogged about this before insofar as I do think there are some circumstances where it is valid to have exclusions for MFA if you've got other ways of verifying the identity of the device platform and the network and all that stuff in place. Wouldn't recommend doing it for admin accounts ever, but for your standard users, let's break it in gently. You know what I mean? Don't just throw MFA at them and say every time you access a resource, you're going to need to MFA.
No, you really need to find this balance, especially for your end user, between productivity and security. And if you're going to bother them with MFA prompts and they don't know where they're responding to, and they just prompt yes, even when it's phishing, then it's not making it more secure. So Microsoft is doing quite well in that area, because if you leave everything default and you're not too messy with the access tokens or like the frequency in conditional access, you should only be prompted one time per user, per device, per password change. So if you're just don't change your password, because you don't have to. Using MFA, you use one device. You're not that prompted that much. It's just that one time when you take out a new device and then you want to install Teams, for example, or you want to enroll the device, then you need to do MFA. But other than that, maybe with some high privileged tasks or some business applications that you run from your bring your own device, you need to do step up authentication with multi-factor authentication. That's fine, but not 10 times a day. It's not necessary.
Yeah, totally agree. And one of the other things that you blogged about was kind of using Power Automate to also police conditional access, managing things like break glass accounts. And I found that quite interesting because I'll be honest, Power Automate is not something I'm well versed in. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've kind of designed there?
Well, you're seeing a lot of infrastructure as code lately, and there are a lot of companies that want to make their whole Microsoft 365 environment as code. And when you do things with code, you cannot make that much mistakes. So you say, okay, we have this template that we use, and this template for conditional access, for example, and there's always an exclusion for your break glass accounts. We just put that in there. So if you make a new conditional access policy, you don't have to think, okay, I need to exclude this break glass account because it's already in there. But there are also a lot of companies that do them manually. They're just creating manual conditional access policies from scratch, and they often forget to exclude this break glass accounts. You get all these warnings nowadays. Watch out, you're enabling MFA for all cloud users. That means it's also included you and your global admin accounts and your break glass accounts. But still, there are a lot of incorrect configuration of conditional access, and that made me think, what if I make a script, because I use Power Automate, that go by all the conditional access policy and just checking, like, is there an exclusion for this group? Yes, thumbs up. If not, you will want to be alerted because you probably made a mistake. And I'm not good at PowerShell, so I needed to make a script, and then I ended up with Power Automate, which is so easy to use, together with the Graph API. That I ended up with tons of other scenarios that I fixed just using Power Automate or Logic Apps and the Graph API. So it's amazing. It's really easy, and even I can do it, so everybody can do it.
Wow. Excellent. So I guess, if someone is looking at getting started with Power Automate and also the Microsoft Graph API, how do you start looking into that? Because if I'm just a normal IT administrator and I'm used to working within the Azure AD portal and things like that, it's not so obvious. Where should I start if I want to start automating this kind of thing?
Well, start small. You can start within your own personal Office 365 account, for example, by just automating some daily stuff. Like, okay, every time I get an email message with an attachment, I want to store that in my OneDrive folder, for example. So you get used to how this Power Platform, this if this then that statement work. And then you can take it to a next level when you understand that by doing stuff against the Azure AD port, for example. So you can say, okay, let's try to pull out all of my licenses out of my tenants to see what information I can grab from that. And I struggled with the fact that it's all JSON, and you need to understand how JSON is put together and what you can do it. You need to parse it, for example, and to do something with it. But once you get that, there's a whole world open for you, because when you get the concept, you can do that for other things as well. So just learn the basic, and there is again ton of stuff out there, YouTube videos, blog posts. You can talk to me about it. I can learn you. I can get you started. It's just out there, and just start small and then extend it to what you need in your, because you can fix quite some day-to-day challenges with Power Automate these days. You can automate stuff really easy without making complex PowerShell scripts, for example, because I'm not really good at PowerShell. I'm really honest. Also to my customers, I say, okay, if you want a PowerShell specialist, just hire someone else, because I'm not good at PowerShell.
I mean, because Power Automate and things like that, they're described as being low code, and you've said that you're not good at PowerShell. Do you find that although these are quote unquote low code solutions, has it made you better at understanding coding or programming in any capacity like that?
Maybe the programming part, by thinking more logically, but I'm no better at coding.
The thing I really like about, sorry, Jan.
I sometimes peek at the code, like you can peek in what's happening in the background, but then I switch back to my GUI and then to make building blocks. So no, I'm not better at coding. What do you say, Pete?
I was just going to say, the thing I really like about Power Automate, I've used it a bit, is there are so many great templates already there from Microsoft that you can leverage if you're starting to play with it. Look at the templates. There's a ton of them there that for all sorts of services within M365, things within Teams, within SharePoint, within OneDrive, within Exchange Online. So many use cases. I was playing about with SharePoint syntax, forms processing. I did a talk on that, and that leverages Power Automate. So there's so much cross sort of population of technologies goes on with that sort of thing. The Graph API, on the other hand, that's not something that we hear about the Graph API a lot at the moment. It's a very, very topical subject. I know very little about it than it exists, and people love it. I wouldn't know what to do with it. What's your thoughts on that? Have you found the Graph API easy to get into and understand, and what are its real sort of uses?
Yeah, it came at the same time as when I looked into Power Automate, because Power Automate has these default connectors that you can use with OneDrive, for example, and Excel. But then I needed to fix something in Azure AD, and I had to go by using the API. So it forced me to go in there. But if you want to start with the Graph API, just go to this website, aka.ms/GE. It's a really short URL. It's easy to remember. And GE stands for Graph Explorer. And Graph Explorer is a great tool to get you started. There is sample codes that you can run by simply putting the queries out there. So get users, get licenses, get a membership, group memberships, and it will help you understand how this thing is working. And from that, you can build it up and use it together with Power Automate, because I also made some custom connectors for the Power Platform based on the Graph API, and I needed to do that, and I needed to learn it. It cost me quite some weeks, even holidays and weekends and evenings to study. But eventually, when you get the concept, the sky is the limit. You can automate anything with that. So it's worth to just get the concept and then be creative.
Oh, fantastic. I will definitely go and take a look at that website. Thank you, because I found the whole idea of the Graph API to be quite scary. I'm like, I'm not sure I can get my head around that. Much in the way that you... Yeah, exactly. But it's one of these things that seems to be increasingly inevitable. Like GitHub's another one where all the time, GitHub all over the place. And at some point, I'm going to have to get my head around it. But yeah.
Well, Rue mentioned that the Microsoft documentation is now on GitHub, and I didn't know that you can just contribute by doing pull requests. So you need to you need to be half of a developer of some sort to understand how do I do this pull request. But sometimes when I read the documentation and I see that something can be optimized or is outdated, for example, when I have the time, I try to do that, to make a pull request. And you really have to understand how GitHub works, and that took me quite some time as well. But when you talk about Power Automate, Graph API, GitHub, those are the tools that mostly developers use. So
Exactly.
there's really this gray area. What am I? Am I a Microsoft 65 consultant or partly a developer? It's really close to each other.
There are lots of blurred lines, aren't there? All across M365. You find the same sort of thing in Teams as well, because if you're a Teams expert, you're always going to get asked questions about voice and telephony as well, because that's part of it. So wherever you put yourself in M365 as your expertise, Mr. or Mrs. Customer is going to come to you and say, well, can you talk about this and that as well? And you had the example, well, I'm not a PowerShell expert, you'll need to find someone else. But you're always going to get asked those questions, and it's a good way to learn, isn't it? You go off and research these things and learn more about these other associated technologies within the platform, which is how I love learning anyway.
Yeah, well, everything between the lines of M365 is basically my comfort zone. Something that I can quickly understand, even if I haven't worked with it for months or years. You can be up to date really quick. So if it's something that you've done in the past, you can pick it up and can say, okay, I've not done it for a couple of months, but I can help you with this. Same for Teams. I also try to step out of the comfort zone a little bit, and also, for example, do this MS 700 exam, just to see where I'm at. And I try not to study for it, just do the exam and then see how I'm doing. And maybe with a retake, I need to do some do some studying. But that's how I keep myself a little bit up to date. So I'm not an expert in Teams, but if you ask me the question, you can get a good answer within a day.
Oh, fantastic. That's a really good way of learning, actually, as well. I mean, everyone's got different ways of learning, but that's a really effective way, because if you take a Microsoft certification and you pass it first time, yeah, great. Sometimes you'll pass them first time and you didn't expect to. But if you don't, if you fail, and there's nothing wrong with that, we've all failed them, you get this lovely score report to see where you need to improve on, and you can take that away and then study those areas and go back and give it that second try when you're ready. So love that. Absolutely love that. But I'm sure I know somebody who might have contributed to a book on MS700, actually, but can't for the life of me think who that was.
Great job on that one. But I didn't need it. I'm sorry.
Well, that's good. No, I'm happy you didn't need it. I'm happy.
But I think I can learn a thing or two from your book. It changes so quick. What you know today is outdated tomorrow. So you need to stay current in all the topics, and that's hard. So you can pass for MS 700, and then after a year, good thing that Microsoft now lets you do a retake from that exam.
Reassess your skills, yes. That reminds me, I've got about 4 of those to do. You've just depressed me greatly now.
I'm sorry.
I've seen they recently changed how long it's valid for, didn't they? It's only valid for 1 year now rather than 2. So you'll be having to do those 4 exams every year now, I guess. Yeah. Mixed feelings about that. But
yeah, I think 2 years
changing
was fair,
so fast that it makes sense. You know.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, there is that argument.
Yeah, because I mean, I think about the SC200 exam, which is about the Defender stacks on Azure and 365. They look radically different than they did this time last year, and then the year before that, and then the year before that, almost unrecognizable. You know, so it makes sense that they're speeding up the cadence. Just again, shift gears a little bit here. So one final blog piece that I've seen you writing about, Jan, and I'd like to kind of quiz you on is you've described, if it's not done right, you've described BYOD as bring your own disaster, which is a term I love, and I will probably be stealing it. What are your kind of thoughts on how folks should deal with BYOD scenarios? Because in my experience anyway, it's a bit messy. within the Microsoft 365 world because it's different for every single operating system. What's your take on that?
Yeah, my clients struggle with that as well. And they say, okay, Microsoft is preaching, hey, you can work everywhere on every device at any time. And they misunderstand this concept with every device. That doesn't mean that you can take any device and just, yeah, okay, it works. You can really be productive. But if you need to secure this, bring your own device scenarios, that is really hard because you have to worry about, okay, how do I prevent from data leakage to these devices? I don't want to that they store my documents on these devices. And I figured, I thought about it. I studied it. I looked into it. How could you make this as user friendly as possible, and still be able to let everybody bring their private, bring your own devices to work and say, okay, I want to work with Microsoft 365. It's hard. First of all, you definitely need an E5 license for that to make that secure. You need like Microsoft Cloud App Security or endpoint protection, something in that area. I think BYOD is not the right solution for Microsoft 365 nowadays, unless you're working with Windows Virtual Desktop. You can say, okay, it's just a bridge, stepping stone to go to this secure environment. But to have actually data on these devices, that's not something that you should want. Other than that, you should think about the concept of choose your own device, which meant, okay, I have a couple of devices that you can choose. Do you want a MacBook? Okay. You want a Windows machine? You want an Android device or an iPhone? But it is a managed device. It's managed with, for example, Intune, and then you can protect your data much easier. Because if you come with your laptop and say, okay, I want to work on this, you're rather there are a lot of gaps that you can't do because it wouldn't be secure. Yes, you can work in the browser, but you cannot download anything to your desktop apps, for example. Or you have to step into information protection, of Windows information protection, which I don't have good experience with nowadays. So it's tough. So you can make it secure, but you have to force your use to work with browsers, only with browsers. So you route them through MCAS, and you throw on a DLP in there, and you make sure that they cannot upload any malware, and then you're fine. But you definitely need an E5 license for that. So that's expensive. So this whole bring your own device, it sounds more easy, more difficult than it's more difficult than it sounds in the first place. And not at the first place because you think, hey, it's working. I can let this people, especially now when everybody needs to suddenly needs to work on their own device because they're at home. Yeah, it works. But if you also want to make it secure, it can be really a disaster for your IT environment.
Yeah, I kind of have the same conclusions as you insofar as I think to really go for BYOD, you do need that E5 license because it all revolves around MCAS. It's the way to do it, is get folks to use the web browser. On mobile phones, the MAM policies seem to do a reasonable enough job if you can force it through conditional access. But I have to admit, and it's kind of surprising given that Microsoft is historically the desktop company, that BYOD on the desktop it's kind of a disaster, to steal your phrase, insofar as you have Windows information protection. It seems to be kind of abandonware now. They don't really put any investment in it because they've got endpoint DLP, but endpoint DLP is limited to devices that are fully enrolled in something like MDM. Yeah, WIP it is sometimes touted as the mobile application management system for Windows 10, but there's so many backdoors around it, and there's so many ways that you can just completely ignore it.
And that's the essence of my blog post. It's mainly around this Windows and Mac devices, because I also believe that mobile application management is a great tool to protect your data on mobile devices like Android or iOS. But the pain is in these devices like Windows or Mac OS. There are too much gaps, and it's you just need E5 and everything through MCAS to make it a little more secure. But again, then productivity stands in the way. So finding this balance, it's hard.
It is hard. I love MCAS to bits, and Rue, you've got a talk that you've done a couple of times about using MCAS to protect teams, which I love so much. And you made the point that that's to force users to use the web client, which is great, but also contrary to what Microsoft want you to do in terms of the best experience, because the teams, the full Teams app it's just better in a lot of ways, many ways. So there's that disconnect there as well. I think hopefully in time they'll make the connection where MCAS can go that stage further and work with the full fat client app. It really needs to.
It
really would.
Yeah,
it really would.
It is a strange one because I don't understand the technical reasons why not, but when I tell folks that it only works with the web version of Teams, on the one hand, the web version of Teams, it's not awful. Is it there if you're full feature parity? Not quite. For example, it can't do background blur, and that seems to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. But then I also don't folk get confused because they're like, well, when I open Teams as the full client app on Windows, that's basically a web browser. You've taken Teams on the web and you've just put a little container around it. We'll see, hopefully. I don't know if the Teams user voice has anything on that, actually. I'll need to go away after this show and check that. If it isn't,
actually. If it does, then Microsoft won't be checking it, though.
Yeah, of course, because user voice is getting...
they're going a different way.
Demolished.
Yeah, I saw something on a docs.com article just yesterday, I think it was. There was one of those little purple things saying, we're not doing user voice, but watch this space. There's something coming here soon. So there's something in the works for sure. But the Teams engineering team are fantastic people, though. I mean, Jan, you as an MVP will have some roads to them as well. And they work tirelessly to make Teams the best product it can possibly be, and they're working with Azure AD, and I know they'll get there. I really do. But absolutely fantastic.
Well, I don't think you could ever fault the effort they put into Teams. I mean, my God, the pace of development of it is bonkers. You just can't keep up with it.
So much. And I was on the Microsoft Tech Community Forums just a couple of days ago. I was just answering a few posts, and you're on there, you're trying to help people solve some problems, and sometimes there isn't an answer. And you know what users can be like sometimes. They're not happy with that. And, well, this is no good. And I was chatting to somebody in the Teams team saying it's so frustrating when you see the effort that goes in, the sheer work that has gone into making Teams this phenomenon that it is, and then so often the focus is on what it can't do as opposed to what it can. It's really, really quite upsetting sometimes. But people are people. You're not going to please all the people all the time, and you give them so much, they're always going to want more. That's human nature. But but speaking of community, I mean, Jan, you've been in the community for quite some time now, and you've deservedly been awarded as a Microsoft MVP, and massive congratulations on that. It's fully deserved. How's your community journey been in the last year or so? How have you found being a part of that? What's it meant to you, and becoming an MVP? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my MVP journey is really short, as I would say, because I was doing something for the community, but more locally on LinkedIn, but mostly in Dutch. So only Dutch people could read it. Maybe they're gonna throw it through Google Translate, but I don't think people did that. So when I started to make my blog post in English, then I got a whole broader public out there, and they start reading it and start liking it. So that gives you motivation to go on and to expand more. So I started my website in early 2019, and I suddenly had plenty of time because of COVID. So I could make quite some blogs then. I should do more blogs right now because I'm a little more into speaking right now. So I'm a little behind on blogging, but I have seen some quite interesting things developing around conditional access. So I will go into there. But yeah, I agree with you on the community helping each other. the time and effort that I put into it, I get back only more than twice the stuff that I learned from, for example, from you guys. So it's giving and receiving. It works both ends.
Oh, it certainly does. That's so true. I've learned from both of you guys, and will continue to do so, and everyone in that great community. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about getting involved, I can only encourage you to do so. You'll not regret it. It's very welcoming, and there's so many great people in there doing all sorts of different things, doing blogging, doing speaking. You don't have to pick one. You can do where you feel most comfortable. Speaking is not for everyone. A year after doing it, I'm still not hugely sure it's for me, actually, but but I keep on doing it. But yeah, there's something for everyone, and everyone's just absolutely brilliant. And you never know where community can take you, the people you'll meet, the opportunities you'll get to make a career move or do as Jan has done and branch out on your own, take that leap. Phenomenal, the opportunities that you're going to get from that. But love community so much, but I think we've got a much more important question though relating to movies, though, haven't we, really?
Yeah, I was going to say it has to be asked. It has to be asked. It's the question that the Microsoft community care about.
Yeah, I've seen it,
obviously. So, Terminator 1 or Terminator 2? Oh,
you're not gonna like this, and the community is not gonna like this either. It's neither. It's neither Terminator 1 or 2. I'm not a movies guy.
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
That's a good answer. Yeah,
that is a good answer.
Yeah.
I have a similar answer whenever people talk about gaming. I mean, my oldest son is a massive PS5 gaming fan, and many of our colleagues are gaming people, Xbox, PS, and I'm just not at all. I'm just don't care. So I get that. Not everyone's into movie. We've all got our passions. So good answer. Love that.
Yeah, not much into television either. It's just the only show that I like that I watched since college is Friends. I love the show Friends.
Brilliant.
I can still watch that. I watch it almost every day. Just before going to bed, just one or two episodes to close off the day. It's so relaxing and fun and still funny. Even I've seen all the episodes like 15 times or so. It's still funny, but it's not for everybody. But
no,
I've
true. I love
it.
I think it's aged really well, in my opinion. Some people of a particular generation potentially don't think so. I think there's some content in there that they would argue hasn't aged well, but that is what it is. I love it for what it is. I think it's brilliant. There's a reunion coming up soon as well, isn't there? They're going to be doing so I look forward to watching that. And such a great show, so rewatchable. You've made me want to go off and watch some episodes myself now. So many funny moments, so many quotes like pivot.
Yeah,
pivot.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
Absolutely love it. Fantastic. And so what do you like to do then? What are your passions, your hobbies? If like people like us tend to be so focused on M365 and so passionate about it, it kind of is both our hobby and our career. But is there anything else outside of that you like to do that keeps you happy and you're passionate about?
Good question. I get a question a lot by saying, "Hey Jan, do you have free time? Do you do other things than just this community stuff?" And yes, I do. Of course, I have my family. I have a lovely wife and 3 kids. So I love spending time with my family, just going out for long walks or on holiday on trips. Awesome. And next to that, I also make music. So I'm a guitarist. So I put a lot of time in music as well. So those are my main hobbies next to work and community.
Love it. What sort of music is your favorite? What's?
I'm kind of old stuff like Beatles, like that stuff. But I can appreciate like Passenger and all these modern artists as well. So I'm easy on I'm not too picky on my choice. Whatever is good on the guitar, I can, and if I can play it, then I enjoy it. So
just whatever you enjoy. Yeah, I love that, and I love how you mentioned the Beatles and the Beatles. I'm a big fan of sort of Apple, ironically, as a tech company, and the Steve Jobs story. And I've watched the Steve Jobs movies a couple of times, and Steve Jobs and the other co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak, one was very much for the Beatles, and the other was very much for Bob Dylan. And I think Jobs was the Dylan man. So yeah, it's what you enjoy, isn't it? And love that. Absolutely love that. Best guitarist in your opinion, sort of rock guitarist who instantly springs to mind?
Well, would be Slash, I think. But
Slash, what a great answer. Fantastic.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Eric Clapton is also a great guitarist and a singer, and his writing is phenomenal. So
Yeah.
maybe Eric Clapton is my answer.
Awesome. What would you say, Rue? Any thoughts on that?
I'm biased. I would say the best guitarist isn't even a guitarist. It's got to be Lemmy, doesn't it? Even though it's the bass guitar. He played it like a guitar. Nah.
Yeah.
It's got to be. I couldn't pin it down to one. I would struggle with that.
It's difficult, isn't it? There's so many. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
Hendrix, haven't you? But and so many different, just so many different genres within rock guitarists themselves. Because when you compare someone like Hendrix to someone like Brian May, who are both geniuses, but they're totally different. So, but I'm not an expert on music.
Yeah, it depends on the style as well, doesn't it? You know, and there's so many out there that you just don't know. There's a difference between skill and what you just like, and I find it kind of hard to say this is the best person. You can have a favorite, but are they the best? That's where I struggle. So I guess I guess probably start wrapping things up now because I don't want to take away too much of your time. Jan, I guess you mentioned that you're into the speaking track. You get anything coming up that you want to let folks know about?
Yeah, well, funny that you ask. Next week, I'm speaking at the Dutch user group, which is now called the Workplace Ninjas NL. And I'm really honored to go there on stage because I'm a loyal visitor myself on this community. But now I can actually tell my own story, and it's all about Azure MFA.
Nice.
Like I said, the devil is in the details. So if you want to learn all about MFA, all the little tricks and tips from the field, you should definitely check it out. It's next week on Tuesday.
Awesome. And did you say this you're actually going to be on stage? Is this an in-person event you're going to?
No, it's not. It's a virtual stage.
Right. Okay, I'm with you.
I should do the air quotes on stage.
Yeah, and well, if you can get us the link to that, do we have that already, Rue? Can we share that in the show notes?
Yeah, we can absolutely share that.
Go and find that if they want to go and see what Jan's talking about. And is that going to be in Dutch or English?
No, it's in English.
It's in English. Awesome.
The in-person events were always in Dutch, but since we're virtual now, it's going to be in English or something very similar to that. We call it Dunglish.
Dunglish. I love that.
Cool. Good stuff. But yeah, we'll absolutely link to that in the show notes. And then what we'll also do is we'll also link to your social media profiles and things like that. Do you want to give a little shout out to where can folks find you on Twitter, LinkedIn, things like that?
Well, the best thing is to go to my website, janbakker.tech, and you can also find there my LinkedIn and Twitter my tags. So it should be easy to find me.
Awesome.
Amazing. Absolutely.
Yep, good stuff. Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap it up for another episode of Cloud Conversations.
Number 8.
It was really great to have you here, Jan. That was a very good conversation. And keep us posted if you've ever got anything interesting you want to talk about. Then it'd be great to have you back on. Thank you for having me, and have a great day.
Amazing. See you all next time. Thanks all for joining, and catch you down the road.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.